I'm going to call our meeting to order. Today is May 8th, 2018. This is a business meeting of the North Kingstown School Committee. If I could ask everyone to please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Madam Clerk, if you could please call the roll.
Mr. Glassbach?
Here.
Mrs. Hoskins?
Here.
Mr. Jones?
Here.
Mrs. McGovern?
Here.
Ms. Stevens? Mrs. Schott? And student representatives.
Here.
And if you could please call our calendar.
Tuesday, May 22nd, 2018, there'll be a school committee business meeting. Tuesday, June 12th, there'll be a school committee business meeting. And Tuesday, June 26th, there'll be a school committee business meeting.
Thank you. First, we have two presentations this evening. So if we could start with the LABMF Dating Violence Poster Contest winners.
So it's my pleasure to introduce Ann and Chris Burke. They are have the Lindsay Ann Burke Memorial Fund, and they annually hold a contest, an art contest, to support the principles of healthy relationships. And we had some winners in North Kingstown again this year, and so they are going to make the presentations. And Janice Strain is here. Is Janice still here? Yeah. Janice, are you going to assist in this?
Sure.
So Janice is an art teacher at the high school. I think everybody knows that. So you guys can take it away.
Okay.
Thank you.
At the
You can
podium
come to
there.
the podium just because it gets picked up by the microphone.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, first of all, it's an honor to be here, and I'm especially proud because I'm a North Kingstown. We are North Kingstown residents and have been for numerous years. Both of our children attended North Kingstown schools, and I've been pleased over the years since we started the fund in Lindsay's memory. She was a victim of dating violence, and as a result, we got the Lindsay Ann Burke Act passed, which requires, as you know, schools throughout the state to teach about dating violence in middle and high school. And we have been very pleased with the response that we've gotten to both our middle and high school poster contests, and it's really a pleasure to know Janice, who I think is an exceptional teacher. I think that shows through in her dedication and commitment to her students, and not just having them perfect their artistic ability through various contests, but I think especially there's the connection as far as her motivation to have them learn more about the topic of dating violence through their participation. So Janice, we are pleased to recognize you and your work in our schools on behalf of our children, and I wanted to give you a copy of actually the 6 winning posters at both the high school and the middle school level. And the first place winner, we are very pleased to announce, Julia Steinway Adler. So Julia, if you would come up here, please. And we'd like to give her a copy. We'd like to give her a copy of her poster, as well as present her with a certificate and a check for $1,000.
Oh, wow.
And we know that that will help her as she's a senior heading off to school, college, bigger and better things next year. Julia, thank you so much for doing such wonderful work. And your poster has already been copied, hundreds of them, and I've already started mailing them out to the schools around Rhode Island so that her artwork is going to be educating others as they see them in the cafeterias, the guidance counselor's office, the libraries, the health classroom, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So congratulations, Julia.
That's awesome.
And we're especially pleased to let you know that we have a second place winner as well from the high school, Gabriella Neves. And Gabriella, this is your poster. And the same applies to you. We've got hundreds of them that have already been mailed out, and we'll continue to mail them out next year as well. So we're just so proud of your work. And you also have a certificate and a check for $500.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
No, thank you very much.
All right,
Thank
thank
you.
you all for your support. And again, thank you to Dr. Humberg, my former principal, and also to my neighbor, Mrs. Hoskins. Thank you.
I would
Thank you.
also like to recognize Michaela Collianez for winning honorable mention as well, and Mackenzie D'Souza. So out of our 7 submissions, we had first place, second place, and 2 honorable mentions. I'm very proud of all my students who submitted. Thank you.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great, thanks.
So the next item on the agenda is a presentation from Mr. Kevin Gormley for the Career and Tech Program. Before he begins, I would just like to let all of you know how impressed I've been with Mr. Gormley's work and his leadership for this program. It is truly impressive to show up to one of the board meetings and to see the involvement of so many local business owners who are part of the conversation with us and hosting our students for internships and contributing to this great program that is being built. And you'll be seeing some statistics tonight over how well things are going.
Thank you, Dr. Roget. At our last advisory board meeting for the Academy of Engineering and Robotics and the Academy of Business and Finance, I went through kind of a summary as to where we had been over the last 3 years since I have kind of taken over as the director of the program. And Dr. Roget thought it would be beneficial for me to report that out to the school committee as we move forward and look to grow more and obviously make sure that we're giving the students the experience that they need, that they currently have, and we were able to sustain that over a lifetime. So I just put together a short presentation. I think most of you were able to take a look at it. I'll go through it briefly with you. If you have questions, please feel free to ask me to stop and reiterate or repeat anything. So we have presently have 2 academies, pre-engineering and robotics and the business administration and finance. Inception year for pre-engineering and robotics was 2015-16 school year. We're in our 3rd full year. And the inception year for business administration and finance was 16-17 school year. We're finishing our 2nd full year. We just got some great news. We're pending approval for this upcoming 18-19 school year for our 3rd academy, which is information technology and computer science. Just kind of dotting some I's and crossing some T's on some language to make us an overall approved academy. But we have been working hard on that with, just as we did with the other 2 academies. We had systems in place and felt like we were had the knowledge enough and experience in the classroom to make this a beneficial program for students. We're trying to create academies in areas that we excel in. We're just not throwing stuff against the wall. And trying to grab things. We really, I feel, have been so successful because we have the teachers have great knowledge and experience to pass along to the students, which is why we're growing so rapidly. We just have some phenomenal teachers in these 2 areas. They really are why the program is growing as well as they are. So these are the enrollment figures. We'll go through engineering and robotics first. As you can see, when I took over the program, we had 37 students in the Academy of Pre-Engineering and Robotics. That grew to 67 last year, and for next year, in September, we'll have 112 total students in that academy. These are our new enrollments by year. Again, 37 in the first year, 30 last year. We have 45 new enrollments coming in for this September. Just showed you a few percentages increases just to try to show you the growth rate. An 81% increase from year 16-17 to 17-18, and we did 150% growth rate this year. These are the enrollment by year of graduation. Right now we have 6 people leaving this program this year, and I actually did a shout out to all of them to see if they were continuing on with engineering at the next level, and I received, it's kind of tough to get a hold of all 6 of them, but 5 of the 6 are continuing on at various institutions. So that was very pleasing to me to know that we've given them something that they currently enjoy and to seek that out at the secondary level, which is what the college and career academies are all about. So I was pretty pleased with that. You can see the breakdown, and obviously each year we've gone up in regards to enrollment. And this is just another way to comprehend that. I guess what I want to show here is that obviously the program is growing each year, and our biggest piece of that pie will be the incoming freshmen next year. And again, this is always something that actually our board asks me, because we're always trying to get females involved in these areas of technology and expertise, and they wanted a breakdown because it tends to be a male-dominated occupation. We're trying to change that. So this was something that I didn't have my original numbers when Dr. Roger and I met at the advisory board meeting, but I put these together after the meeting. I felt was relevant to know this has been increasing, and it was actually, it moved up to 14% this year. It was at less than 6% before this year, so we are getting more females involved. Any questions on the enrollment figures for pre-engineering and robotics before I move on to the Academy of Business and Finance?
Kevin, it seems like then our retention rate is almost 100%. In other words, unless they're leaving the state, we've had from 9th grade to 10th grade to, they keep with the program.
So far, yes. We've had a few, I haven't had anybody drop out. The only students we've had leave the program, I don't think any in engineering and robotics. I think business and finance, we might have one that moved back to their home school. But everybody that's, the good thing about the in-district students is, they get to take these as electives anyways. By being part of the academy, they get the designation, but they also get a guaranteed seat in the class because they're really popular electives. But yeah, our retention rate is very high.
And does each CT have a different advisory board?
We started out with our articulation agreement on a national level with the National Academy Foundations. We had to have an advisory board, and the state would like to see advisory boards for the other RIDE-approved programs. So we combined our advisory boards actually this year. I had one for business and finance, and I kind of worked with Mr. Powell, Rick Powell, who was our curriculum coordinator for pre-engineering and robotics. We decided to have one board, and they get along fabulously, and they care deeply about both programs, and they have some great ideas. It's nice to get 2 different perspectives from their areas of expertise, and we'll merge our IT board right into that. We have 1 member of that board right now. Linda Larson from Synedia had agreed to come on as part of our application. We look for that to grow, but she's a very important member in IT and computer science. We're lucky to have her.
Yeah, that was my question. Just it's more the outside experts we're getting to join us. So we're getting, I guess we're getting those people from the different areas.
Yeah, currently we have, I think, I don't have it off the top of my head, but I want to say 22 to 25 board members from businesses throughout the community and state for both. And it's a pretty even split between engineering and business, and the 1 IT. But again, we didn't really have a program until a week ago, so it's good that we have one. Okay? Yes?
What % of the students in the academy are from in-district versus out of the district?
In the Academy of Engineering and Robotics, 75% are in-district. In the Academy of Engineering and, Business and Finance, 64 are from out of district. So it's we actually have more students coming in for the business and finance. And somebody asked me about that, why I think that's true. We have a robotics program at the middle school level. I think it's kids involved in district and enlightens them at an early age, and I think they carry through with that. So I think the robotics teachers at the middle school are doing a really good job. The first time they really, the first time they really hit business is in high school, but that's actually changing. I know Eileen Murray did Davisville Middle School was first in the state for the financial challenge for Rhode Island. So they are getting exposed a little bit more at middle school, so I feel like those numbers will balance out. We have a lot of in-district students join our academy after they take a business class. So they'll take a business class freshman year. I want to say I had 10 applicants this year from students that were already in NK because they took a business class and want to be a part of the program because they want to have that preferred seating in those electives because they're so popular. We had a huge spike in our elective classes this year in the business department in particular, where we're seeing huge growth in sections for kids taking them. So these are the enrollment numbers for business and finance. Again, our first year we had 9 students, moved to 33 currently right now, and next year it's a huge spike to 73. So we really took a bump in the business and finance academy. These are our enrollments by year. You can see we had 40 this year coming in. You can see obviously the percentages are huge because we started off a little lower, but we are growing. These are our enrollments by year graduation. And again, we are getting students like, I had 2 juniors this year join the program and they're going to complete it. Between now and next year, they'll be able to do it. There's a little more flexibility in the Academy of Business and Finance because we only have 2 full year classes. The rest are taught on a semester level, so there's some flexibility in their schedule. They can get it done a little quicker, whereas engineering and robotics are full sequential courses that they have to take consecutive years. So there's a minimum of 3 years in engineering, robotics, and business and finance. You can do it in 2. Most of the kids that you'll see to go through our program will take a business course all 4 years because it's their passion. They love it. So again, this is our just a pie chart. You can see that new class coming in is going to be our biggest class. And the male versus female breakdown is much different than in engineering and robotics. We're 50-50. We're right down the middle for males and females. And that's about it. So any questions on the enrollment figures for business and finance? Okay. So we want to talk a little bit about what it costs us per year to run the programs. I tried to break that down as simply as I could. Again, I didn't go through all, A to Z. I just tried to cap or summarize what our yearly expenses is per program. So in engineering robotics, we do follow the Project Lead the Way curriculum, which is why we have the RIDE articulation agreement, and we have a fee each year to use that curriculum of $3,000. We'd like to see the robotic team funding go up to about $10,000, and classroom supplies right now are pretty minimal at $5,000. So it's about $18,000 to run that program each year. Business and finance, a few more expenses here. We have an articulation with the National Academy Foundation, which is why we have the articulation with RIDE, that we can be an approved program. So again, there's that membership curriculum fee. We also have to attend the NAF Summer Conference. Some years it goes up to $4,000, but I don't think we've hit that yet. It depends where it is. Sometimes it can be across the country, which is, can be it's really flights and stuff like that. I attended it 2 years ago. It was in Orlando. Last year it was in Texas. Mr. Lamboy attended that in Dallas, and this year's in Washington, D.C. So it does move around a little bit. The DECA Club, we'd like to increase our expenses in that. They're really doing some fantastic things in regards to competing at a state and national level. Just had a tremendous amount of success at the national conference in Atlanta. We'd like to be able to fund at least the entrance fees for those students that make it to nationals. And then some other things in the Business and Finance Academy. We got that great ticker on the spine that we got with our original grant when we started the Business and Finance Academy. But that software package is what you can see it is per year. Plus we have a ticker software package in the cafeteria, which is a little more simple, but not quite as expensive. And lastly, I'd like to get some definite funding for a lot of work-based learning experience that we're required to do, not only for the state level, but with our National Academy Foundation. There's stuff that comes up all the time with Johnson & Wales, Bryant, other types of field trips. I know Mr. Fusco is really looking forward to visiting the new launch trampoline headquarters, which is in the old, I think, Bernie and Phil's furniture. Yeah. So Rob Arnold's part of our advisory board. Great guy. I know him from town. He's heavily involved in Woodford Little League, how I met him, and then we just happened to come full circle with being part of the board. But he had his corporate offices over on Centerville Lane, and then he had the old Sports Authority, which was his jump park, and now he's got it all in one. And so it's just a great example of consolidation and upgrading facilities. So that's one thing that Mr. Fusco's looking to do, and we have a bunch of experiences like that. We did state did a job shadow day on Groundhog Day. It was state sponsored and actually helped us with our national certification with NAF. But just a bus fee for that to get over to Census. What an impressive company that was. They hosted us, myself, Mr. Haig, and about 10 of our students, and we had just a fabulous day. They took us through their company from A to Z, and it was fairly impressive. It's the first time they did it, and you would never know, but it really impressive. They manage 529 plans, in particular for the whole state of Washington, but they're trying to get into other states too, but really impressive company. And this is my projected expenses for IT and computer science. Again, we will follow the Project Lead the Way yearly curriculum fee. This is why we get our RIDE articulation agreement approved. We'd like to do a skills team with this academy. Just, I felt like it's definitely something that the kids like to do, not only in the classroom, but after school, and our clubs and our teams are quite exceptional. So I didn't want to leave that out. It might, be ambitious right now, but I'd like to, once we get them up and running and going, I'd like to have some money for them, and then classroom supplies and recursive software. So those are our three totals. And then the advertising budget, I kind of separated the three academies because the advertising really goes to everything. This is what we're currently spending right now, pretty nominal. I'm advertising in the Southern Rhode Island newspapers, independent newspapers, and Beacon Communications. So Southern Rhode Island is basically, I believe that one is just Standard Times, Narragansett Times, and just those two. And then independent newspapers cover basically from Cranston all the way down to North Kingstown, East Greenwich, West Warwick, and then the Beacon is basically Warwick and the Cranston Times, Warwick, the Warwick Beacon. And then I did have some, new signs that we'll need this year from Signorama, just to put around the high school. I usually post them outside of the athletic stadium in the fall to post our open house. That's a big thing. We had a pretty successful open house the last 2 years, but the big thing I always hear is, we didn't know about it. And I'm doing everything I can to try to get the word out there. But, pretty modest advertising budget right now for what we're doing. This is what I'd like to go to. I'd still like to advertise in those local newspapers because I think that's where a majority of our demographics is coming from. But I'd like to maybe dip our toe into radio advertising. I hear it all the time on the parochial schools in the state. And I feel like that's a way for us to maybe get our message across to a broader spectrum. Again, I did some very minimal research on this, came up with a modest budget, and it would be right during that 2-week period when I advertise in the newspapers. And I will need some updated open house signs, but I'm not going to do a mass kind of marketing thing that I did in the past, where I had 50 signs. I'm just going to get about 10 and put them in, high traffic areas where we're drawing our students. So it basically doubles our advertising budget. I don't think it's, outrageous for what we're going to do and what the numbers it could produce.
And I would like to note that from the first year we had the open house, the second year we had the open house, Mr. Gormley thought forward from the first year to be able to reuse the signs for the second year's open house.
Same date, 2 years in a row.
Yeah, we
Okay, so just so you know of the ingenuity of our staff on saving money and being frugal.
Yeah, thank you. So again, here's the expense sheet, just to so you see it in a broad sense. So I'm not trying to separate it out. Just kind of broke it down into each category and their subtotals. So if we kind of head down for our yearly expenses, that's kind of our bottom line, what it is to do what we do. And like you said, that's not what we're doing right now. This would be an increase to make the experience what it needs to be. So that's what we're looking out for years to come. Again, those are all approximate numbers. They're not exact. The only exact numbers I really have on there are the fees for the tickers, the software package fee. Okay. Any questions on the expenses? You know, I know it's quick. If you need to digest it, I certainly could appreciate that. If you need me to go anywhere in particular.
Just one
Oh, sorry.
point.
Sorry, 1 second, we'll get questions then.
Oh, okay, sure.
Just a quick question about the DECA and the robotics. What % of students in the academies participate in each of those? And then what % of the students that participate in those are not in the
I'd
academies?
say it's 50-50.
Okay, in both
Yeah.
cases?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, the DECA team is much larger than, you know, we had several members go to nationals that are not part of our academies, but they are growing, and I know in both senses. Robotics, yeah, I would say it's about 50-50.
Yeah, okay, great, thank you.
So I have a concern about the advertising expenses, because it seems to me that newspaper advertising, people are saying they don't know about it. I mean, those newspapers are all low circulation newspapers, you know, they're in the local area, but is there a way that we could spend that money and do better outreach using like Facebook advertising or some other, I don't know, I don't have
Like
young kids
constant
anymore,
contact
but
or-
yeah, there has to be, and perhaps we should even consider talking to an advertising consultant about how do you get to it's the families, it's not just the kids, but the parents as well.
We did a social media blitz this year, and actually the students within the academy ran it. So we did hit the Twitter, we did hit the Facebook. Again, I'm not really an expertise in that at all, but you know, I feel like the students know a lot more about that than I do. But we did run a social media blitz this year, and I think it did help a little bit. But in regards to paying for social media, you know, I'd have to do more research on that.
What is the target audience? Is it the students or is it the parents?
It's both. It's both. Ideally, I care about the students. I want them to have a good experience. I want them to be interested in what they're doing, because I feel like if you're interested in your content area, we're going to retain you, and not only going to do well in that content area, you're going to be do well in your core classes, because you're going to get excited about learning. Obviously, the families are our target, but you know, one of our targets, because we want to show them that we're teaching college and career skills that they can use not only at secondary level but in the world of work. I mean, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to create independent thinkers in these academies. We're trying to create students that can handle adversity, that can adapt well to change. Those are the things that we teach. Engineering is a subject area, business is a subject area, but we're trying to create independent thinkers. And I would think any parent would want that. Like, maybe the kids can't see it right now, but I'm a parent. I have 2 students and you know, children in the school district, and you know, I want them to be able to think on their own and not need me anymore.
I'm wondering, related to your point, because I agree, we need to invest in here. It's the same, you know, small things too, like we've had a better working relationship, like with the head of school at Compass. And so every single one of those 8th graders are eligible to come to our CTE. So when they have their open house, you know, having a targeted, we can have a separate CTE pitch from just, you know, the North Kingstown High School pitch to our 8th grade North Kingstown students there. And then I was thinking, like, middle school robotics competition. I mean, we may have our students competing there, but are those opportunities to sort of have flyers or brochures, or, you know, I was thinking more print stuff that can be readily handed out at kind of events where kids who might be interested in this and their families congregate to.
Sure, we can do more research on that. I do have a brochure handed out at our open house. I always have it available at the regular open house and our CTE open house. But yeah, I can try to hit the pavement and find out more opportunities where we can definitely grow.
Well, that's why I think it might make sense to have some, you know, help, assistance to.
Sure.
I love the idea of the radio, because I have heard the ads on the radio. They are catchy.
Yeah. What about, how much how much time do you spend with the 8th grade guidance counselors, personally, like one-to-one?
A couple of years ago, we did have them come in and went through everything with fine-tooth comb. Fortunately, that meeting didn't happen this year, but I am in contact with all 3 schools between Jamestown, Davisville, and Wickford Middle. I received applications from those guidance counselors through interoffice mail, and I answer any questions that they have.
Right. It seems to me that that would be, those are the people to target, because those are the
Yeah.
ones who are influencing the decision at the
I
end of
agree.
8th grade.
Yep.
Like, so that's the time to target people. And if you just go directly to the schools and spend the money that way, you're gonna get right to the people who are gonna sign
Yeah,
up.
we were fortunate enough to do presentations at Wickford and Davisville.
Yeah.
We have a recruitment video that's online that I show, and I answer questions, and Mr. Powell usually comes with me, has a slideshow on the robotics teams and so on and so forth. So we are doing that. It's early before our CT open house, and we try to encourage them to attend the open house, because seeing is believing. If they take it,
Right.
most, I probably do about 15 to 20 private tours after our CT open house with families in North Kingstown, families outside North Kingstown. If I can get them in the building to show what we have, the retention rate is really high.
Right. And part of the reason I say that, my son is a sophomore from Jamestown in the robotics and engineering, and he and I think all the Jamestown kids that joined that year did it because the guidance counselor suggested it to them.
Good.
And because they knew kind of what their bent was and encouraged them and said, yeah, why don't you give this a try? So it wasn't, so I think that's, again, that's a focus group of 4, but when there's only 40 in the program, it's 10%.
See if we can sneak into Curtis Corner Middle School, right?
Get it down there.
Kim, my other thing, I'm just wondering if our expenses on the information technologies may be low, in the sense of thinking ahead about, getting kids credentials and micro-credentials and other kinds of certifications in the career sense that, might require some more just stuff, to get those kind of opportunities.
Yeah, it was Bob, was a total,
Right,
my
I
best
know.
guess right now. I think the IT Computer Science Competition Club is maybe a little high. I know the credential that they're going to get throughout this program is the Project Lead the Way credential, which is recognized by, the colleges and universities in designated areas. I'm not familiar with IT and computer science yet, but I do have those colleges for engineering and robotics. I know WPI.
I'm just gonna join you for a second.
Oh,
Hi, Denise Manseri, high school principal. So just one of the things that, what Kevin's primarily concentrating on is the school budget, but we also have money that we gathered through the CT Trust from RIDE that we received last year. So all of the computers, everything that started up the IT program was all through that grant, which we still have money available left. And we also go to see Laurie Ferguson at Coventry, and we get Perkins money from RIDE as well. So for this year, we didn't include the Perkins money, we didn't include the grant money. But as soon as that does run out, we will
Well,
start.
that's kind of my
Yeah, so
concern, is that-
we'll do a projected out, but we
Yeah.
literally just found out a week ago about it. So I just wanted to make sure that this is just the budget here for now, but we do have access to other things that we're writing the grants all the time and getting the Perkins money.
I know Dr. Ajay wanted to.
Yeah, one of the points that I was really impressed with at one of the most recent board meetings, some of the board members brought this up, and it's something that the school committee has noticed in the past too, and that is the need to invest into this program. This is growing, not only with North Kingstown students, but with out-of-district students. And with that comes increased funding with those students' tuition. And I think it's important to be mindful that with growing number of students becomes, the expense grows. And so it's important that we designate certain lines that from that particular funding, we need to make sure we're covering this program and making sure that it gets the funding for the resources it needs. I think the communication points that people brought up are very important, not only for career and tech, but we all have been part of conversations about, competition with charter schools, competition with other districts who also have career and tech programs in other fields. And it is not necessarily even against the rules that a student could say, I want to go to the business academy in another district, and I'm a North Kingstown student, and if they find that more appealing than ours, they are welcome to go, and we have to pay for them, no questions asked. And there are some students, fortunately for us, who have done that. They're coming to us even though their own district has a robotics program, even though their own district has a business program. So it is a competitive atmosphere out there, and we really need to have the conversation, and I hope to do this right away at our next meeting, about increasing budget lines for communication, increasing even our transportation to Warwick, where a lot of our students are coming from. I think it would help to sustain and to grow that connection by having a bus that picks up kids at one centralized stop in Warwick that is paid for by those tuitions. And then that bus becomes available to us for other things as well, like late bus, like helping out an elementary school with a long run at the end of the day. You have a little bit more resources for some other things as well. So, and the business owners brought that up, that one of the first things that we should be thinking about, we're very fortunate to have this thing growing, that we need to be thinking about that with the growth comes greater expense, and to keep that growth going, we need to make the investments that you all talked about.
I think my question with that comment, Dr. Ajay, is that with the growth, it's great, and I love the career and tech programs, and I love where they're taking us, but I still, and I know a lot of people in my community have concerns when it comes to sports, and how that's dealt with. You're pulling all these kids into the career and tech from other areas, but then they get to play sports at North Kingstown High School. Is that not correct?
They're eligible to play sports at North Kingstown.
Right, so why, but again, is this something that parents take up with Bride at some point and say, why aren't they playing sports for their home, where they live, or, it's just, I know that's a concern.
Once they're enrolled in whatever high school they're enrolled in, then they're a member of that high school, and they participate in that high school's activities, sports, proms, graduation.
Right, so, and whether or not kids are choosing programs, I know that's a concern
Well,
in our community.
And I think it I get your point about, spots on teams and that sort of thing, but we're fortunate to have a strong athletic program. We're fortunate to have a strong music program, and there are students. It's not so much of a you're on the team or off the team with a band as much as it is varsity basketball, but that is something that it is a benefit to us to have a really strong comprehensive high school that is doing so well in so many areas that becomes an attraction for students in that competitive atmosphere. It's not just public school anymore, where you go to school in the town you grew up in.
I know I'm talking a lot tonight, so I apologize.
You're here to talk.
Jump
No,
right
I know,
in.
I know, but it's, like, I just wonder, and I know this is gonna be very cynical, but, high schools didn't used to compete against each other for students for academics.
Right.
Now, let's pretend there's a kid in Warwick who wants to play basketball in NK because it's a better program, let's say, and I don't know. And so they say, hey, I'm gonna sign up for that info technology thing so I can play basketball in NK. So suddenly it becomes a recruiting tool, and next thing you know, someone's having a conversation with someone else and they're recruiting players and they're getting them in by that. And I'm not saying that's gonna happen, I know that's super cynical, but just something to think about with
Well,
the
I've heard it
sports
from
thing.
our community. I've
Yeah,
heard
they-
it from
yeah.
people who have expressed that as a concern, that at some point, we live in North Kingstown, we pay taxes in North Kingstown, we send our kids to North Kingstown High School, obviously, and now, even though they're, a varsity basketball, who knows, whatever sport, now they might not get a spot because we have 4 kids from Providence and 6 kids from Warwick, who have now bumped them out because of their.
And it's hard enough to make these teams, as you all know.
So I'm just playing devil's advocate. I think the programs are great. I love that we have the programs. Every town has them. I think ours are really good. It's just, I know that I've gotten a lot of, my kids are in 3rd and 4th grade. I have a long time before they get there, but they also both play competitive sports. So
it's been a concern that's been brought to me by a whole host of parents.
Anyone else?
Any questions on the expenses?
Sorry.
No, I mean, your concerns are duly noted. I just have one more slide. I just wanted to, these programs were all paid for by grants. We applied for grants. We got $50,000 to start engineering robotics. We got $250,000 to start business and finance. So, you know, we have a lot of nice things in place right now that we, you know, for the most part, we contributed to, but the majority of it was paid by these grants. So I just wanted to go through a 5-year projection on some of the things that are going to need to be replaced, and that was really what the advisory board was talking about. Like we have the technology in place, we have items in place. What's your plan for when these things break down? So I think that's what really got us going on this whole presentation. So I just kind of put some rough numbers together for each academy. Again, this is all I think was emailed to you guys, so you can. I'm not going to go through it. You can you can take a look at it yourself. But it just shows. I tried to break it down so it wasn't a huge chunk each year. I actually, Mr. Waterman and I talked 2 days ago. I kind of did this before I spoke to him. He sees some of the same needs and has allocated for some of those needs too. I tried to break it out so there wasn't a huge impact in any one year. But some stuff is starting to get dated and it's going to need to be replaced. So if you scroll through this document, it's called the CTE Capital Improvement Plan. It's a very basic plan with approximate numbers. You can see the totals by year at the bottom. I tried to spread it out. For example, like we were able to purchase 90 laptops for the business and finance program because even though we're a one-to-one school with the Chromebooks, that's just web-based. We need specific software programs on those computers that we use in the business program. Their total was $90,000 when we got them the first time with the grant. They're going to be, some of them are, they're in good shape. We lock them up, we take care of them, they stay in the classroom. We have all protocols in place to ensure their quality. However, they have a shelf life of about 5 years. So that's an example where I started to, replace one card at a time, 30 at a time over a 3-year period. Again, is that the best plan? I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there so you didn't see a $90,000 budget item in 1 year. But it just gives you a sense of what, we need to do. Like the engineering robotics lab as it stands right now, that needs to be upgraded. That's going on its 5th, 6th year, and our 3D printers need to be upgraded too. So that would be something I would look to do in the 1920 school year. Nothing for next year. I haven't, we're at status quo, but we need to make sure we're attracting these students because of our teachers and our equipment and our setting, and we need to make sure that stays at a high level for the next years and beyond. So again, just to give you a sense on that, we just did for example, we just last summer we did the IT and computer science lab in 216. So I don't have that till the very end. Eventually that will need to be replaced. But just like we do in our homes, things break down, and we need to have a rainy day fund to replace those things, and hopefully on a consistent basis, not just when needed. So it's not one big hit. And that's really all I have for tonight. I really appreciate your giving me the forum to speak on the programs, and I'm here for questions if needed.
Are we eligible for grants for some of that replacement?
We'll apply when they come up. Any grant that there is. I know Dr. Manseri is all over that, and sometimes they're due very quickly, but we get it done. Whenever they come up, we're a great team there, and we all see the common goal, and we do whatever we need to make sure that we get our submission in, and we have for the most part every time. Not only did we do it, we get it. So.
We talked about this when we first started, especially the Finance Academy program, because we had such a huge influx of money that we had from RIDE. And what we wanted to do right off the bat that first year was to try to save some of those tuitions. That didn't last long. That was thrown into the general budget. I think the main thing that people have to understand is stuff doesn't last forever. You know, it's the same argument that we have with our buildings, except they even have a shorter shelf life. You know, laptops, when they're getting constantly used, they don't last forever. So if we don't start planning that, we're gonna have a program that has crappy equipment because we can't replace it. We put $300,000 into the Finance Academy. $250 of it was from RIDE. So that's great that Kevin put that together.
Can we look at what the tuitions bring in to kind of offset it, or?
Well,
is that
how do we
what's
do that? How do we do that? Because when you go to the town, they don't want us to have any money. We're criticized for what I consider a small surplus every year. So basically, those monies are going in to reduce the ask from the town, and we're not allowed a contingency, we're not allowed a savings fund, we're not allowed a reserve, because there's this constant battle of, we don't get funded for capital, but we're also criticized for having what surplus we have on a $67 million budget. So it needs to be fixed, because that is exactly what's going to happen. We're wrapping up year 3 on the Finance Academy, we're wrapping up year 4 on robotics, and robotics really does need to get an increase in funding. They have for a couple of years. Not that, you know, Finance Academy is overfunded, but they didn't get as big an influx, and they're very heavily supply oriented. There's a lot of supplies, a lot of parts, a lot of stuff that's needed for that. So it's something we definitely have to figure out. We have to work with the town council so that we're not constantly playing this catch-up game.
Or start having business-sponsored classrooms, right? Is that legal there, Mary Ann?
I don't think so.
The iRobot, room 216.
Brought to you by. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Have a nice evening.
Okay, next we have citizens' comments. Anyone would like to speak? You can all rush the microphone. Okay, we're good. Next, we have,
Recognitions?
okay, I went
Yeah.
by, oh, sorry, towards the end, yep.
Right.
Other recognitions, we'll back up.
Sure. So this is a nice segue from what we just heard. We have the Wickford Middle School Science Olympiad team placed 5th on April 21st at their competition. And so we want to congratulate them and Mrs. A. Russo for all their hard work. We also had from the high school another recognition. Maura Flath has been chosen as the state's first youth poetry ambassador. There were 30 applicants, and she was the one who was chosen for the whole state. Dr. Masseri, did you get to go to
Yes, I was there.
her reading of her
Yes, it was, we
poetry?
actually have a video, I had a video and we posted it on Twitter, on the Twitter account. But it was great. She was there with Tina King, who is the poet laureate for Rhode Island.
Yep.
And the assistant ambassador, who's going to be a senior next year, will take over Maura's job while she goes to college. So they were excellent.
And then 2 more. This is again in the art area. I'm telling. I said today it's hard to keep up with all these recognitions. There's just I can't believe that we have so many successes. And so this is Julia Medeiros and Nathaniel Riggs for placing as semifinalists out of 150 entries in the Roger Williams Zoo Youth Art Contest. And their artwork is going to be posted on the Roger Williams Zoo website. So, and also through the park's social media. So congratulations to them.
Congratulations as well.
Couple more. We have Mary Beth Clark, a junior at North Kingstown High School, who was given the Rhode Island Young Leaders Award by Seth Magaziner this week. Dr. Humbert and I had the pleasure of going to Wickford Middle School today, where a very interesting session on Korean culture by the Korean Spirit and Culture Promotion Project. And Dr. Humbert made this beautiful lotus lantern for you all. as part of the project. All the students made one of those. It was really fun afternoon over there with them. And congratulations to Sandra Mikulski. Mrs. Mikulski is at Davidson Middle School in the history department, and she is a finalist, one of 3 finalists for the Rhode Island Teacher of the Year. So we'll let you know how that works out once we hear more.
Thank you. So next we have routine items. I would ask for a motion to seal the executive session minutes of May 8th, 2018.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion from Ms. Hoskin, second Mr. McGovern. All those in favor? Aye. I can disclose that no votes were taken in the executive session of May 8th, 2018. Next, we have our consent agenda. I'll ask for exemptions, but before I do, I will exempt item E7. Does anyone else have any exemptions from the consent agenda? Hearing none, I'd ask for a motion to approve the non-exempted consent agenda items.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion, Ms. Hoskin, second, Mr. Jones. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously. If I could get a motion to table item E7.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion, Ms. Hoskin, second, Mr. Jones. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? And motion is tabled. Next, we have a couple memorandums of agreement. We're going to modify them just a tiny bit from what's in your packets. So for each, the very last sentence, let me just bring them up, sorry, so I say this properly. We're just going to add, right now they end with the sentence, this agreement will expire on June 30th, 2019. I'm going to ask that when we approve it, we approve them with the amendment that it says, or until a new contract is approved and signed. So if I could have a motion to approve item F with that modification, that the last sentence will continue or until a new contract is approved and signed.
So moved.
I have a motion. I have a second. All those, any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Next, item G, same, if I could have a motion to approve that item with the addition to the last sentence to say, or until a new contract is approved and signed.
So moved.
I have a motion.
Second.
Ms. Hoskins, second, Mr. Jones. Any discussion? Yes.
Is this the one that talks about languages?
Let me see, this is
Yes.
item G, yes.
It says word languages instead of world.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Take that amendment.
We can correct the typo for world languages, though all languages have words, we mean world languages. Okay, so those 2 amendments. All those in, we had a motion and a second.
Yep.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. And the final, no, sorry, not final, item H, the DA staffing memorandum of agreement, also with the modification that the final sentence say, or until a new contract is approved and signed. If I could have a motion.
So moved. Second.
A motion, Ms. McGovern, second, Ms. Hoskins. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? It passes unanimously. And the last one, the NEA&K MOA 8-block schedule, which is item I, with the addition to the last sentence, or until a new contract is approved and signed.
So moved.
I have a motion, Ms. Hoskins. Second, Mr. Jones. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Anything on the 2017-18 school budget?
No.
Okay, now 2018-19 school budget. I, along with a number of people, including all of you folks, attended the town council meeting where they did the budget approval. If you folks weren't able to watch it. The highlights from our point of view of the evening were that our operating budget and the associated the associated grant funded and other items were all approved as we had requested. So we received the budget request that we had asked for. We brought to the town council's attention, we need to keep in mind that a budget is a budget, and as we've pointed out many times, the budget calendar that we have to adhere to requires that we do our initial budget when a great deal of numbers are very much in flux. We received some favorable news from the state that It looked like due to our census numbers that they expected our state aid to be about 86, that if I make any numbers wrong, Ms. King, please tell me. Our state aid, they project to come in about $86,000 more than we had budgeted. So in full transparency, we wanted to bring that to the council's attention, so we did. And what we had suggested with respect to that was that we were comfortable, and the administration was comfortable with the town council reducing the operating budget by that $86,000 because we had an offset, on the revenue side. But we wanted to give them the request that they then fund our capital reserve account with that $86,000 because over the past few years we haven't had any funding for the capital reserve account. That caused a great deal of discussion. The end result of which was that the council, in a 3-2 vote, decided not only to approve moving the $86,000 into our capital reserve account, but to supplement that with an additional $414,000, giving us a $500,000 funding line in our capital budget for next year, which passed. That was, from our point of view, the highlight of the evening. There was a lot of discussion on other non-school related matters, but the school budget was the main thing that we were there for. On our agenda this evening, with respect to that, is approval of our final budget. The good news is that we do not need to make any additional major modifications to our budget. We are going to, what was presented in your packet brings our budget in line with what was approved by the town, taking into account the $86,000 reduction, and then increased revenue budgeted for state aid. The only caveat with that is, Mrs. King is very quick to point out to me all the time, is that is still a projection, and that number could still change, and we could maybe not get the $86,000 that we think we're going to get. But it's based on the best numbers that we have at this point, and the budget is a budget. So that's where we're at. Do you have anything you'd like to add, or Dr. Ajay?
I would like to add that,
And
it was...
2 seconds, and I want to thank the members of the council who voted in favor for their support.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It was a long and wieldy night, and it wasn't necessarily the same people who voted in the affirmative on the budget or the capital piece, but to some extent, every council member supported the school department that evening, and it is much appreciated. It was the first time that I've been superintendent that the request from the school committee was completely honored by the town council, and it was the first time that there was a $500,000 allocation for capital. So there's a lot that is still needed, but those are big steps in the right direction, and I really do appreciate their working with us on that.
Yeah, and actually I would like to thank Mr. Kevin Maloney. He is the one who actually really brought that forward. The $86,000 we had requested through the town manager. Mr. Maloney is really the one who brought that up, put himself on the line for that recommendation, that the total be added to in the $414,000. So I'm very appreciative of the time that all the town council members took. It was a very long night, but Mr. Maloney is the one who brought that forward and pushed that through.
So before us for item B is to approve the school budget, which would be our final budget with those amendments to bring it in line with what was finalized by the town council the other day. So if I could have a motion to approve item B1. I have a motion, Ms. Hoskins. Do I have a second? Second, Ms. McGovern. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. CIP bond, existing bond, future bond. Also at that meeting, the town voted to approve a joint school and town bond to bring forth to the General Assembly enabling legislation required to do that, with the goal of having it come before the voters. Anything else you want to add more specific to that?
No, we'll have to be working on that as we move on down the line. It'll be a joint effort between the town and the school department, because it's going to be a joint bond, so it's incumbent on us all to get the information out to the voters so they understand what they're voting for.
Joint bond of $27 million, half of which goes to the school department for much needed projects. We've talked about this, so I'm not going to go into details, but I don't think there's really anyone in the school community that wouldn't recognize the items that we school community has been looking to address for years and years. So hopefully there'll be a really nice turnout for this and to get a lot of these projects rolling.
And I just want to point out that there was a lot of discussion at the meeting on the town side of the bond as to, you know, exactly what their priorities are and how they want to spend the funds. I think we have been pretty much in agreement in our proposal as to what the school department would be using those funds for. And the thing that I don't want to get lost in the discussion about the, you know, the inner workings of which projects are the best ones or which are not, but that as proposed, this bond would have virtually no impact on the tax rate for the taxpayers of North Kingstown. And that's because we're able to take advantage of the fact that some bonds are being paid off, and then this gives us an opportunity to, you know, do some further capital projects and do some upgrades and much needed things from our point of view on the school department side. At a time where it will have, you know, a minimal impact. So voting for this bond is not going to trigger a tax increase, which is not usually the case when you're voting for a bond. I think it's really important that that not get lost in the greater discussion, not that the greater discussion isn't important as well. So next, we have a couple policies. We have the second reading of item D1, which is the transgender policy. So if I could have a motion to approve item D1. I have a motion, Ms. Hoskins.
Second.
Second, Mr. Jones. Any discussion on this one? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. We are bringing back, after some minor revisions, item D2. If I could have a motion to approve D2.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. That's our competitive bidding. Any further discussion on this one? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
We have no new business. There's a disposal notification in your agenda packet. Any questions on that? If not, we have reached the end of our agenda, and I would ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you very much. What? You voted? Yes, I did. We've got them all.